Welcome back to the show, everybody. And this week, I've got one of the biggest names in the HVAC game coming on to share some knowledge and share his story. So let's get it, y'all. What's up, trade crew? Welcome back to the HVAC R&D podcast, the home of the trade crew, the voice of distribution, contractors, and manufacturers. We're rolling into Q2 with some serious momentum, and the show is growing bigger than ever. The HVAC R&D Substack newsletter is officially live. The Ramblin' Rhino column is back in full force with multiple fresh articles dropping every single week, and the newly relaunched resource hub at hvacrnd.com is now going to be your go-to spot for tools, products, partners, and insights built to help you grow in the trades. So if you believe in real conversations from the truck to the boardroom, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss the conversations, columns, and resources built for the people keeping this industry moving. Big shout out to our Q2 partners making it all happen: Diversitech, LiveSwitch, RLS Rapid Locking System, True Nature Meats Company, Residio, and Mon Hummel. Now lock in, turn it up, and let's get into another great conversation right here on HVAC R&D. So what's up, trade crew? Welcome back to the HVAC R&D podcast, and today we are joined by Victor Rancour, CEO of Rocket Group, founder of Absolute Airflow, and one of the most forward-thinking growth minds in the home service space today. Victor's story runs from HVAC technician to multiple-time top-selling technician to scaling a Southern California company past $65 million in revenue, and now partnering with 11-plus companies nationwide to help trades businesses grow stronger, scale faster, and build something that lasts. So Victor, welcome to the show. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, brother. I'm excited to be on. Obviously, I've actually listened to the podcast in the past, and I'm excited to be a guest.
Appreciate it, man. This is it's been a journey doing this for 5 years, and I feel like it's finally kind of starting to come into its own, if that makes any sense. I've never been booked out this far ever. Emily, your assistant, and I were talking about it a few minutes before all this, and it's become a whirlwind in some ways.
I don't think people understand the amount of work and stuff that goes in behind the scenes. Obviously, I run my own podcast as well, and it's like the amount of work of getting guests and shooting the content, editing the content. So more power to you. 5 years in, that's a whole job in itself. So good job.
It definitely is. So Victor, for people that may or may not know who you are, and for me, this is me really learning a lot more about your journey as well. Before Rocket Group and all of your portfolio and everything, take us back to where did your journey start and how did you end up becoming an HVAC technician in 2015?
And I think I always like to start my story even before that, back about 12 and a half years ago, roughly like that. I was actually living out in Cleveland, Ohio. I was working for one of those quick oil change places called Lube Stop, and I was making $6.75 an hour. What I did, I never worked in that industry before, but one of the things that obviously you go to an oil change place, their job is to upsell you, right? And I think one of the things I really learned, and before I got an HVAC and found how much money you can make upselling that, I was in this industry, and I still remember I worked at the worst store in the entire 32 company organization, right? When I got there, it was the worst store there. There's only, most of them had 3 bays. We only had 2. And we were a smaller shop, smallest one. And I went in there and I was the guy down in the pit getting oil splattered in my face all day. And it sucked. And the only way to get out of the pit was to learn how to merchandise, how to upsell, right? So I'd sit down in the pit and I'd listen to these guys and how they would go about their process of selling. And I'm like, hey, I told my boss, give me a chance, man. And I'm from California. I keep in mind, I talk a lot faster than people in Ohio, and I get energy. I feel like I got more energy, right? Cleveland will make you, it's muggy all the time. It gets your energy down. So I was like, look, man, just give me an opportunity. So, they gave me the opportunity. I had turned the 32nd worst store in the entire company to the number 1 store within 30 days. Literally, we only had 2 bays, and we had the fucking customers lined up around the corner because we were doing so many repairs and upgrades. And very quickly, I moved my way up in that company, became one of the managers and stuff like that. And at that point, I was like, I think they raised me to manager, and I got to go to like $9 an hour. So it was pretty dope. So not really. It was pretty bad. So I'm like, I called my mom. I was like,
when you came from that, you're like, oh man, this is a huge upgrade. I know exactly what you mean. I mean,
yeah. So it was a pay raise, but I was still, renting a room in an apartment in a house, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. And I'm from California originally. I moved to Ohio to kind of get away from. I was wild in my early 20s. I need to get away from here for a little while, get away from the friends I was with. So about a year into that, I called my mom. I was like, dude, I need to get back to Cali, right? I need to get back to California. So I moved back here. And so I worked a bunch of odd jobs, and I was a bus boy, server, all these things. And then I got into construction. I got an opportunity to be kind of a laborer, but like a training and like apprentice to become a contractor. I wanted to become a general contractor. So I was doing everything from high end finish work to, house building, framework, all that stuff. And I really fell in love with it, and I thought that's what I was going to do. I figured I'm going to become a contractor, and I was trying to do my best to learn as much as I could in a short period of time to make sure I could do that. And then one day I was online. I was looking at a job because my daughter was just born, and this is in 2014. And I'm living in a room in a house still. I got a baby on the way, and I'm like, man, I got to get benefits. I got to do things to be able to support her and be able to give her a better life, right? And that's when I saw Craigslist ad, and it said HVAC service technician will pay you. You're gonna make at least $60,000 a year, get your own work vehicle, 401k benefits, and I'm like, dude, $60,000 a year sounds like a lot of freaking money to me. And I'm like, cool, I'll go do that. Little did I know, it was probably the best ran company in the entire country, which is Service Champions out of Southern California. And I got to work for, one who was a mentor to me now, Leland Smith. He gave me an opportunity. And I remember I went to this group interview. There was 100 people in there wanted the interview. Some guys showed up in backwards hats and all these little things, but I showed up in a suit because I'm like, I really need this job, right?
Yeah.
And I was one of two people that got picked out of that interview. I was one of two people that wore a suit that day, right? Because they want to see like how you carry yourself, because you carry yourself, you're going to carry the company. And that was one of the things that Leland did. Like his interviewing process was very thorough. We had to go through three different interviews and all these things. And I still remember I got the call and he's like, hey, you got the job. And I'm like, oh shit. But I still had no idea what HVAC stood for. I didn't know. I'd never done HVAC. I grew up in Southern California. My house had had a floor heater. I never had central air conditioning and heating in my house. So I didn't know much about HVAC, right? And they trained me from nothing. They had a training program. And at that point it was a new thing they were rolling out. They were going to train guys from scratch and train them to be techs. And I was in a group. I think there was like two guys in that whole group interview that got hired, but there was like 6 total technicians that started at the same time. And I still remember, the first day we get there and one guy had a 5 o'clock shadow, and their rules, you had to be clean shaven every day. Right. And I always tell the story of this guy. They came in and he had a 5 o'clock shadow, and Leland handed him a single blade razor himself, said, go shave your face. And then he fired him immediately after. Okay. So like, that's the standard that this place was carrying. Right. And that's why, they just sold, Champions Group just sold for $2.2 billion. It's because they set the standard. They had their system, the process and all that stuff. So I didn't know I was going into the best run company in the country, but thank gosh I did, because I had the opportunity to see what a real business runs like, how it's supposed to be ran, how you're supposed to charge the right prices, how you're supposed to train and all these things. And I just fell in love with it. They showed me, I still remember they showed me how much money I was going to get to sell an air scrubber. They're like, you sell one of these air scrubbers, you get $200. I said, yeah, I get $200. I said, you better put like 10 of them motherfuckers on my truck. Right. And I swear, dude, so like, I no joke. So like when you get out of training, the first 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever, you're not allowed to make commission because they don't think your commission, because we got paid your hourly or your commission, whatever's greater. So they're like, yeah, normally you put it out in the field, those guys for 5 or 6 weeks, they expect you just to make the hourly. You're not gonna be able to sell that much. Right. I went out there and I started just like selling like every day. I was selling fan motors. I couldn't keep enough fan motors, capacitors, run caps on my truck and all this stuff. And I still remember they gave me a paycheck. And they're like, here's your hourly paycheck. I was like, no, you're not giving me an hourly paycheck. I just sold all this shit for you. My pay plan says you got to pay me that commission. And Leland said, I never seen nobody like you, but whatever it is, like, just keep doing it. I'm going to keep investing in you. And they did. And they invested in me, and they gave me an opportunity. Very quickly, I became the AirTime 500 #1 selling tech in the country. And I started winning that. And then from there, I built a big name for myself in Southern California. Like, everybody knew me just from chatting back and forth and the numbers I was putting up. And I remember I got an opportunity from another local competitor. And at that time, I thought every company was the same. Service Champions is the same as this company down the street and this company down the street, right? So I go to this guy invites me. He says, hey, come to breakfast with me. And I want to talk to you. So cool. I never met this guy, and I'm always going to look at an opportunity. So I go to breakfast with him. He's like, hey, let's go to my shop. And he shows me a shop, and he had a great shop. They had the button-up uniforms. It looked like Service Champions, but it was not freaking Service Champions. And I didn't know that at that point. Yeah. So I get out of a meeting with him. I'm heading back to my truck, and he comes up to me. He's like, let me know when you're ready. I said, you never made me an offer, bro. And he's like, well, how about this? He's like, tell your girl and your kids, you're going to go to Hawaii next week. Come hang out with me and my family in Hawaii for a week, and we'll talk business. And I was like, I never been to Hawaii before. I go home, tell my girl, and she's like, wait, some rich fat guy wants to bring you to Hawaii? That sounds a little, it's like he wants something else out of you. But no, I'm just kidding. But he was like, he's like, so he's like, she's like, some rich old fat guy wants to bring you to Hawaii. I probably shouldn't come. He wants you to do something else. No, I'm just kidding. But we go to Hawaii, and like I said, I never been to Hawaii in my house. I didn't grow up with money, or my life never grew up with money, all this stuff. So like, this is an experience. Put me first class. He put me in a presidential suite, gave me his Range Rover to drive. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? You can make this kind of money in this business? Like, I didn't know nothing like that, right? And so I'm there for a week. He gives me an opportunity. He says, hey, I want to bring you in, give you the sign-on bonus, and I want you to come work for me. And I was like, done, let's go. Well, when I got in there, I found out really quickly that it runs completely different than Service Champions, right? And I still remember he brought me in to be like trainer and sales guy and all this stuff. So I come in the first meeting, I'm telling these guys our processes and how we run it and how we do things. And he comes in, he's like, no, you guys don't need tools on your truck. You don't need parts on your truck. We sell systems here. I'm like, no tools and no parts. What do you mean? But that's how some of these companies are, right? They're just sales. They didn't do service. They didn't care. So I got to really learn a lot of different stuff on that end. So like Service Champions, they made you're just a sales guy and a technician. You don't see the other side of it, to where this company, I got to see the whole operation, from installation, call center, all this stuff. And by the time I left there, I was a service manager, sales manager, pretty much a general manager. Then I'd have to go out and sell all night too. So I was working a lot of hours, and I found out pretty quickly, I'm like, dude, if I'm already doing all this stuff, I could start my own business. And I still remember the night it was. I went to my buddy Mike has a pizza shop, and we were drinking beers, eating pizza. And he's like, I'm telling him all the stuff that I'm doing. He's like, why don't you start your own business? And I'm like, I'm like 3 or 4 IPAs deep. I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's start a business.
Well, and
so
did you meet? I was going to say before you get to that part.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, we have a certain amount of hours you have to have before you can get your license. At that point, had you hit your hourly requirement to go and do your testing, or were you still there yet? Or how early was this? I mean, time frame, like 1 year, 2 years?
I was 3.5 years in. California, you needed 4 years. Obviously, you needed a contractor's license. I didn't have one and never taken the test. But what I did is, and it's not legal. I look back on it, like I didn't know the rules and regulations and none of that shit. I didn't care. I was going to start a business. And so we started a business with we didn't have a contractor's license. I was using my buddy's dad's contractor's license number, and I was running jobs underneath that, but I didn't know that I didn't understand it. So I didn't have and fast forward a little bit, we had done $1 million in revenue before I had a contractor's license. And I'm like, holy shit. And there's a whole other story behind that. So it's like, I literally got my license and my insurance in January, 1st of the next year. And then 15 days later, we flooded some house, and I thought I was screwed. And I found out that's what insurance is for. So thank God I had my license and insurance.
That's why you have that.
But yeah, so I did break the law for sure. I didn't, like I said, I had to make money, and I couldn't work for this guy anymore. And I still remember the night I decided. I went home and I laid on my living room floor, and I spent hours just writing down business names. Finally came up with Absolute Airflow, and then all of a sudden the next thing I know, I'm like, okay, well now how do I start a business? I don't know how to get an LLC. I don't know how to get all the stuff that I need to have in place to run a business. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but obviously, I quit my job. I was making well over $500,000 a year selling AC, and all of a sudden now I have a business, no income coming in. I still have a Mercedes. I still got a nice truck. I still got house payments, all this stuff. And I had to figure it out quickly. Right. And I think, one of the things the thing I did day one, starting my business, is I took my little cell phone out and I texted every single text thread in that entire thing as far back as it would go. And I said, hey, this is Victor. I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm starting an AC business. Let me know if you need anything. And dude, right away, I started getting hits. And I still remember the first deal I got was out of it was a fantasy football group I was in from years ago. And I texted, I didn't know the guy. He's like, hey, I'm in Long Beach. And my AC went out there, sold him a new system. Next day we go install it. And I had to go buy the equipment from my buddy who had a contractor's license. So he was skimming off of me, which is another funny story, because within 3 months, I was buying more equipment from a distributor than he was. And I was buying it from him. So he was making a little bit of money off of each one. But his distributor's like, how are you selling so much shit? And it was me buying all of it. But anyways, I sold the job and we install it. And the guy goes here's my credit card. I'm like, credit card? I don't know how to process a damn credit card. So I had to call my buddy with the pizza shop. And I said, hey, bro, if you can do this for me, blah, blah. And he said, we ended up running on the pizza thing. And I didn't realize that it was going to send a notification that it was Magic Mike's Pizza. It sent this notification. The guy, he's like, what the hell? This is an expensive ass pizza. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it, bro.
It's expensive ass pizza.
So
That should
yeah,
have
so
been
like
the title of your other book.
yeah,
It's
expensive
my
ass
first
pizza.
expensive ass pizza.
Yeah, so yeah, so yeah, so like I had to learn all this. Like everyone thinks I came in with money. I didn't. I can't. I bought a shitty box truck. I had my F-150 that I already had, and then I had about 10 grand in cash, and that's what we built it off of. And the first 3 months, we ran out of my buddy's pizza shop parking lot. We meet there at 6 in the morning, and I knew day one I had to hire people. Like I'm not going to sales, service, install, do everything. So I hired installers and I hired a couple techs to go run calls for me. And I just continuously just kept getting leads from all my connections that I had made over the years. And then eventually started posting on social media and all those other things to grow it. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then, year one, we started we got our contractor's license. We can get financing. We can get all these things. And we started putting all these things in place. And we did $5 million. It was 4.95 million our first year, calendar year in 2019. And then going to 2020, and we were doing great. And then COVID happened. So like I already had a bunch of employees and all this stuff. And then my employees were like, I'm not coming to work anymore. So I'm back to answering every phone, running every call, doing everything myself. And anyway, so obviously the business took off after COVID, like most companies did. We went to 12.5 million that year, and we just kept scaling year after year. And eventually we sold it in 2023.
This episode of the HVAC R&D podcast is brought to you by Diversitech, the one-stop source for contractors who want to simplify every job. Whether you're stocking up on install supplies, service parts, thermostats, controls, or digging into the legendary tool line from Hillmore, Diversitech has you covered. They're not just a parts supplier. They help build solutions for HVAC pros, offering pads, condensate management gear, electrical parts, replacement components, premium tools that make installs, service calls, and maintenance faster, cleaner, and more professional. Partnering with Diversitech means fewer trips back to the supply house, more time on the job, and less chance of callbacks because you're using the right gear from the start. If you want to work smarter, stay stocked up, and show up for every job ready, Diversitech is a trade pro's best friend. Now, trade crew, depending on when you're hearing this, you may have already seen, or soon you will see, the president of Mon Hummel have me literally jump on one of their filters during the AHR Expo. And let me tell you, rhinos don't just jump on anything. The thin line Ultramax frameless HVAC mini pleat filter is built for commercial and industrial applications where medium to high efficiency filtration truly matters. It delivers MERV 13 performance with low pressure drop to help maximize energy savings, plus high dust holding capacity for extended service life. And there's no traditional plastic, metal, or cardboard frame, reducing environmental impact while still delivering serious durability. If it can handle a rhino, it can handle your job site. Learn more through the Mon Hummel link in the HVAC R&D Vendor Hub today. And let's go back to, you've been in business, long enough, you get your license, you've got insurance, but now as you're continuing to grow, obviously you've worked for these big companies, so you have to have systems and processes in place for things to work. Like you said, you had to figure out kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of, insurance processing, everything else. But what was the first thing that you kind of laid down once you kind of, put your hair out from being on fire for the first year? How did you start to put your processes and your structure together to
Oh,
really deal with that kind of rapid growth?
I didn't. And that was, that's another thing that happened is that we went to 12.5 million just off of pure hustle and sales. Right. So like I'm a sales guy by trade. I went, and one of the biggest things I did when I started my business is I had to figure out the things that the good sales guys wanted to be able to recruit them. Right. They needed benefits. Well, a business that's 5 months into business, that's never, they don't normally get benefits, but I got benefits in place. I got uniforms. I trapped my trucks, and I did the things that would attract the A players to come over. And I could get leads, and I had found ways to get leads. And that's one thing I've always been good at is how do I market a company, get in front of customers, right? And I figured that out just from I literally just watched what Service Champions did. I would pay attention to where their leads came from all the time, what sources worked and stuff like that. So like a lot of that stuff I learned from that. And the next company, I just kind of put it all together. I'm like, cool, this is how we get customers. So I was good at getting customers. I was good at recruiting, and I was good at motivating and sales, and that's it. And then from there, we scaled really fast. And then all of a sudden come 2021 or end of 2020, I made one of the worst decisions I've ever made in business. And I did my first acquisition. And at that point, my business was growing so fast, and, we were profitable. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I can go buy this company 2 hours away, and I can turn that one into this again. And whatever I touch is going to turn to gold. When in reality, that was they lit my business on fire pretty much, because now I bought this business for $3.5 million 2 hours away. It took all of our focus from here and started putting us focus over here. And now all of a sudden I got a big monthly nut because I got the SBA. I took an SBA loan. I had all these truck payments. I had a $10,000 a month building. I had all these things that I had to pay for, but that business wasn't able to produce the way that this one was because I wasn't able to be there and do the things I need to do. And I didn't know people in that market, so I couldn't recruit. And I'm like, all of a sudden it gets to the point where that location was losing like 70 G's a month, like quickly. And so all the profit we made over here is burning out the back door. So that was one of the worst decisions I ever made. And it caused obviously me to really rethink everything and really figure out how to fix this. And so in 2021 is when I'm like, all of a sudden my accountant's like, dude, like we got to figure this out because we're burning cash. So that's when I started bringing in some people that understood the operation side. So like I just like hired people. So anytime I saw I needed something, here, just hire someone for it. And all of a sudden now I have all these employees, and a lot of them are cross doing the same things, and not the operation is just like kind of overlapping. So we went, I still remember, we went one day and we're like, hey, we got 110 employees. Let's go put an org chart together. Let's figure out what everybody's doing. Let's try to build our SOPs and figure out who we need, who we don't need. And that was one of the roughest points in business is I had to lay off 50 people because I realized I had 120 and I only needed 70. Right.
Well, that's insane to think that you could get to that amount of people without having processes. But a lot of that, and I think in some ways, I think you avoided some of those processes because, like you said, luckily, when you first got into this, you worked for one of the best and most well-run companies in the business. So you understood the things that were having to happen to make a business be successful. And by just sheer force of will, you could lead people to do those things without necessarily realizing you actually never put something in place for them to know they should be doing that in the first place.
Yeah, it was chaotic, man. And like I said, I was young, right? I was 30 years old when I started this thing. And, I was 29. I was right after I turned 30 or right before I turned 30. I was 29 or 30 years old. I never ran a business. I don't have a business degree. All I knew how to do was sell. And like I said, what got us out of it is like, we would always just sell our way out of every problem. Like, hey, dude, I got a $50,000 payroll or $100,000 payroll on Friday. We got this much in the bank. We got to go make some sales. And we would just make it happen, right? Like and if I had to go out there and sell myself, I can go, I had a $30,000 average ticket. So I go out there, sell $30,000 job, get that shit installed, collect our money. Then I got to pay my vendor back later, but that's later problem, right? So like, it was it was chaotic, bro. And like, and keep in mind, I tell people like absolutely flow, like it was great, the experience, all these things. Now, if I knew what I knew today, it would have been a night and day different business. It would have been just like, it would have been stupid about like, and eventually my non-compete will be up soon and they'll see in Cali what happens when I come back. But with that, like it was for me, like it was a learning experience. I said, like I paid for an education, right? Like I made that bad acquisition. I'm not going to do that again. Right. Or I did this. I'm not going to do that again. Or, one thing that happened during COVID that really screwed my business is in LA, Orange County, it takes 35, 40 minutes, an hour to get everywhere with traffic, right? Like you go down the street, it takes 45 minutes or an hour. Well, during COVID, there's nobody on the road. So instead of staying smart and staying in my bubble and staying in my 15-mile radius, I'm like, well, I expanded big. I went wide, right? Well, then all of a sudden the traffic came back and I still got to service those same customers and still get out to those. So my windshield time and all this stuff like doubled and went up. And I didn't understand the numbers behind it and how all that stuff worked together at that time. So it really just ate up cash flow. And I didn't think about it like, yeah, we're selling these big tickets and we have a great average ticket with great closing percentage, all these things. But all the money is getting eaten up through all the other operational things that I didn't understand until later on in business. But these are things you learn along the way. Most people learn them at a small scale before they get big, but I had to learn at a large scale where it's 100,000 plus month a day or a week in payroll that I got to come up with, and all these things I have to pay, the insurance, there's lawsuits, there's all those things that happen in business that it was just like, dude, money was just flying everywhere. Right. And I didn't know what was going on. So, but anyways, we were able to cut back and dial in the business, get it to where we could exit it in 2023. And that was an experience in itself. So it's like, you grew this thing, it was your baby, and all of a sudden now it's gone. And that was a weird point in my life. Cause I'm like, now what do I do? Right. Like, where do I pivot to? And so, I spent a couple months on the beach and partying and doing stupid shit. And then finally, like, about, I don't know, 8 months later, I finally got my head out my ass. I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And that's kind of when we started the Rocket Group.
Before you sold the company, what all did you put in place in order to get it to the point you could sell it. So, you redid the org chart, you downsized properly with employees. Did you have a built-in, train the tech program? Did you implement those different things into the business so that you knew long term it could continue to grow and be self-sustaining in some ways?
Yeah, we had so like for us, and when I left Absolute, 80% of my staff had never worked anywhere else. So I was really good at bringing in people off the street and training them and bringing them in and doing all that stuff. So that was always a big feeder for the business and how we scaled. In the beginning, you brought in some A players from outside. From there, I was already consistently bringing in new guys through the training program. So that was sustainable at that point. The other thing is obviously we hit the revenue. Obviously, most private equities buying your EBITDA, what your earnings are. So you had to get the earnings up. We had to get the financials in order. We had to get operations. I had to put a leadership team in place that ran without me. So like when I left Absolute, like I wasn't there day to day. I wasn't there very often. And to be honest, I was so busy. I had started my training company. I was throwing events. I was traveling, speaking on stages. So like I wasn't really there in the day to day, which made it more of an appealing business to go to, because like they thought when they first came in, they thought it was all dependent on me. But in reality, when I went to the business, it was I didn't even know what was going on half the time because all the pieces were all put together. We had all the SOPs and processes in place.
You go from that to now, as you said, you create the Rocket Group. So for people that have never heard of it, and even for people that have heard of it, I've heard of it, but I don't know all the different ins and outs of the things you do. So, what exactly is Rocket Group and how does it partner with home service companies?
So Rocket Group, really, it came by in as an accident. So I started Profit Rocket, which is my consulting, coaching, sales training business. I started that in 2022 and started helping contractors, and we'd hold trainings and masterminds and things like that. And a lot of it started with sales training. And then when Michelle, my partner in Rocket Group, came on and my fiance came on, that's when we started doing the business coaching and the operation side of it. And she's one of the people that really helped me fix the Absolute Airflow operational issues when that was going on, which is chaotic, like I said. But we started doing Profit Rocket and we started training people. And what we saw, it was like, a lot of business owners, they're looking for information, but they don't know how to really implement it. Right.
Yeah.
And so we had some people that have been working with us for years, and they'd grown their business and they were growing a little by little, but I'm like, man, we can grow faster. Right. One of my clients came to me, Kevin. He had a small business. They're like 1.9, maybe $2 million, not profitable, not making money, in a small little town in Arizona. It's a town of 120,000 people. So it's not the smallest town in the world, but it's out in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, where, it's not that much growth potential you would think. But he's like, hey, I'm getting ready to sell this business for 400 grand for the whole thing. Would you guys be interested in partnering with me and just helping me grow it so we can get some more value out of it? And I still remember, I'm like, man, I don't know if we can do this. Like it's another state away from us. It's a small town, small market, and we have to come in and really change it. I said, like, I don't know what we can do. I know we can improve it, but I would love to help you and partner with you. So we came in, we partnered with Kevin. And really quickly, I found out the systems that we had used in Absolute are translate to every market that we're in really easy. But we had to get the right people. We had to get this stuff in place. So we partnered with him in May of 2024. So it'll be a year next, or 2 years ago next month. We were able to finish off the year at $5 million. So we scaled it really quickly. We went into last year and continues to put systems and processes in place. We grew it to 12.5 million last year. And this year we're pacing about 24.2, 24.5, somewhere between there is where we should hit. And so we've grown this thing really fast in this tiny little market. So I'm like, okay, this process is working here. And then also I was posting about it, and other people were like, hey, I would like to do the same thing, right? Like, I want to partner with you. Can you do it here? And, we went together as a team. We're like, okay, we did this, we got this in place. We feel like we can do it anywhere in the country now. And so we partnered with our second company in March of last year in 2025. We took that one from a $1.2 million shop to 5.5 million year one. And now the same thing is pacing about 12.5 to 13 million this year. And then at the end of last year, we said, okay, let's start bringing in a team to really help us do this. So that we started partnering with more companies. I think we just hit our 13th location as of today. And we're all the way from Washington all the way to freaking to Delaware. And we have companies kind of everywhere in between. And now we partner with them. We come in, we bring in obviously all of our shared services, from outbound call centers to, financial experts to, obviously, buying power, where we can cut the cost of doing business, from insurance to everything. We bring in all that stuff. And then we bring in our operational team to really help them run the business to where they can focus on what they're good at, right? They're being the face of the business, being nice to their employees, training their sales staff, we're handling all the back end operations, so they can just focus on what they like as being a contractor, and we can handle all the hard stuff, the marketing, the sales training, and all the stuff that it takes to grow the businesses, the recruiting, and they do their part, and then we all grow together, and they get a big exit. Where some of these companies are worth maybe 200-300 grand, 400 grand, and now they're worth, the Arizona business right now is probably worth 40 to 45 million 2 years later, when it was going to sell for 400,000.
Well, and the difference is, and I've seen this. I've been in outside sales and distribution for 16 years. Talking about growing up in a small market. So, I grew up in a work truck. My dad's a heating contractor, still is. And, you talk about 120,000 people being a small market. We were like 120,000 people in the whole region if we were lucky.
Yeah, that's a real small market.
Hometown. Yeah, my little hometown is like 10,000 people in the county. The biggest problem you see almost industry wide in a lot of cases is these guys that start new businesses. They were a great technician. They were a great sales guy. They were those things, but they didn't, like you, the same with you. They didn't have the business background to know what they're really getting into. So, they go and they create this, what they think is going to be a great company that turns out to be a 80-hour-a-week job that they don't know how to wrap their head around. And having a means of being able to work with someone that can kind of help them understand and work them into it. Like, look, we don't want you to lose your business. We want to help you figure out how to make it be profitable and work. And I think, even I might have had some misconceptions about how you guys do things and what you do and what your goal is when you go and partner with a company. So when you're considering, people that you're going to partner with, does everyone you partner with kind of work through having, maybe they were in Profit Rocket before, and that's how you get them to stay into a position where you may believe that they're the right fit, or they think they're the right fit and want to go to the next level. And that's kind of how you bring them into the Rocket Group above that.
Yeah, so we really like to partner with companies that have bought into what we're already doing. So like, obviously we sell our business blueprint, we give them all the stuff, and we'll identify the ones that actually get it, they'll actually implement. Because at the end of the day, implementation is the number one key to success, right? If you can't implement, it doesn't matter what we give you. We can lead a horse to water, we can't make you drink, right? And if you're going to fight us on every little thing that we do, and I think that was the beautiful thing of working with Fiskor is he said, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to listen to whatever you guys say. You guys tell me what to do. You tell me to jump, I jump, right? You tell me to shoot, I'll shoot. And so, allows, like, when we come in, like, yeah, they had the blueprint, but there's so many different things you have to learn. And like, unless you're, have someone like we do, like every single day we're in every business. And I have, fractional GMs and all these people that are working within these organizations every day, from call center trainers to all sales trainers, all these things. So like, we're taking all the burden off the contractor, where they don't have to figure out what to do or what works, or, hey, what should I do in March, or what should I, for marketing, or what should I do in this time of year? Which vendor should I use? Which CRM should I use? We say, hey, this is our tech stack. These are what we do. This is who we use. This is the process we run. And we really implement all of it for them. And to where they just get to do what the fun part, which is collect money and be the face of it. And like, we want them to still be the face of it. And a lot of times we don't even like to talk about like that we're partners and stuff like that. Like, I want them to feel like, it's their baby. It's still their baby. They still have operational control. They still get to do what they want to do with it. But now they're part of something bigger, and they're able to grow faster. And obviously one thing we talk about as a group is, we just hit 13 locations. Our goal is 20 by the end of the year. Our goal is to grow this thing. And at one day, if we do sell it, we're going to sell it together. So where they might have got a 3X, a 5X, maybe a 7X, and they did everything right. Now the business is selling for 12, 14, 16X multiple, where we're get to make life-changing money because they became part of the group.
Trade Crew, I'd like to introduce you to my friends over at LiveSwitch. If you haven't heard of them, they're developing a platform specifically for trades contractors and service professionals like yourselves. So picture this. Mrs. Jones calls the office. Her furnace is making some kind of strange sound. Normally, you would just have to roll the truck and go see what's going on. But instead, with LiveSwitch, you can jump on a video call right then and there with no app with Mrs. Jones. You can see things from her perspective on a fully functional video call. You can take screenshots, you can record, and you can deliver a different experience that no other contractor is giving their homeowners right now. If you're worried about it working with stuff you're already using, you know what? It integrates perfectly into Jobber, Service Titan, House Call Pro, any of the stuff that you guys are already using. It makes it a seamless transition to add this new tool to your arsenal. Go to hvacrnd.com, visit the vendor hub, set up your live switch demo today. You can also click the link down in the description below, or you can find the link to the demo in my bio. Thanks everybody for listening to the show. Check out Live Switch. I promise you it is an app for you. It gives you an ability to do something completely different for homeowners that no one else is doing right now. You guys won't be disappointed. Go schedule your demo today. Trade crew, let me ask you something. How many leads are you paying for right now that never actually turn into book jobs? That's where Chirp comes in. Chirp is built specifically for home service companies to help automate your follow-up through text, email, voicemail drops, and now AI-powered conversations, so your leads aren't sitting there going cold while you're out running calls. Because the reality is, speed to lead matters. If somebody fills out an online form and doesn't hear back quickly, they're already calling the next contractor. Chirp helps bridge the gap by instantly starting the conversation and keeping follow-up moving automatically. And what I really like is that it still feels human and not robotic. It integrates with platforms like House Call Pro, Service Titan, Field Pulse, Jobber, and more, helping you stay in front of customers without creating more office chaos. If you want to convert more leads that you're already paying for, head over to Chirp, automate the follow-up, and close more deals. Make sure to go to the hvacrnd.com resource hub and book your demo today and find out more about what is truly the most badass AI lead conversion system in the trades. Well, and when you look at contractors to bring into this, obviously your primary expertise was HVAC. I know you and I had a conversation before this about a different type of trade. Are you now looking outside of just HVAC, and you're like, let's say you've got this huge plumbing company that wants to be part of it, and you say, well, part of this deal is we're going to do plumbing, but we're going to cross trade. So you're also going to become an HVAC guy, or you're also going to become an electrician. What all trades do you now specialize in helping these guys grow?
Yeah, so I mean, almost all of our locations are HVAC and plumbing now. We have 3 locations that we've added electrical to, and we also do attic insulation in every location as well. So I know, like we were talking before this, we just actually just closed a deal today with a pretty large attic insulation company. That's all they've ever done. We're coming in. We're going to be adding HVAC this year. It's going to be adding HVAC next year. We'll add plumbing, and then eventually we'll add electrical as well. So we're very versed in all the different trades and how they work, and the margins they got to hit, and the installation, all the things that go behind it. And like I said, I have a really great team that I work with now, and I really am not, I'm technically the CEO if you look at it on paper, but realistically, I'm not the one running the day to day. I got some great people that have built some great big businesses that are working with us now, and they're the ones that are getting the integrations done and all the different trades. So like, obviously we want to make sure we dominate whatever trade we're doing first, then we'll bring on another one, and then another one eventually. But yeah, for the most part, most of our locations are looking at doing HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and attic insulation over the next 12 to 24 months. Every location will be doing that. And I think that it's obviously cross marketing is important, right? Like HVAC feeds plumbing, plumbing feeds HVAC, and how do we compensate those guys to make sure they're feeding leads to the other department, and how do we cross market those people from email campaigns, text campaigns, outbounding, all these things, and how do we integrate it together to where it's seamless and everybody's able to eat off each other, so that one lead can turn into 4 different trades. So I think that's something that's really a big part of us, is how we maximize our lifetime value of a customer, right? How do we take a customer that came in for an HVAC call, now he's doing plumbing, now he's doing electrical, and then eventually we do attic insulation or whatever on it. How do we maximize those leads? Because leads are the most expensive part of your business, really. Like, the cost per lead has gone astronomical. How do I maximize every one of those?
A lot of times when you bring on these newer customers, a lot of times they didn't do any kind of marketing. They may have been purely word of mouth, or different things. And you talk about everything scales very, very fast. When you bring on this new company that wasn't doing any of those things, and you give it real marketing, pricing, operational tools, how important is it then that before you did that, you had a very strong evaluation process with the guys leading the company, that they could handle, that kind of rapid change? What kind of
Yeah.
conversation does it consist of with the business owner and the leadership group for them to be ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, we do go through a pretty extensive like vetting process on a partner. Like, I'm not if you came to me today and said I want to partner with you, I'm not signing a deal right away. Like, we're going to go through the business as a whole, figure out where we're at. We're going to do a market evaluation of what we think we can do. How much capital is it going to take? What's our timeline looking? Is it is it a 2-3 year exit? Where are we looking at? What do we need to put in place? And then, one of the biggest things is like, I don't want to partner with anybody I wouldn't want to drink a beer with, right? And we've had plenty of guys that came in that were like, they don't know shit. They didn't know anything, but they said, hey, they're cool ass people. They're good. They're good family people. They're good, like good to their core. They want to grow. They want to implement. And, and I'm like, hey, I'll take that guy over a guy that's doing $4 million and thinks he knows everything. Right. I'll take a guy
Yeah.
that's doing $1 million that's willing to do whatever it takes to grow. Sometimes I meet these guys and they think their business is worth $1 billion and they do 3.5 million a year. They put 8% to the bottom line and they're just living their lifestyle business. Right. And I go tell them, hey, this is what we're going to do. They're like, oh, we can't do that in my market. We can't do that. Hey, Vic, I don't know if we can do that, but I'm going to give it my best. Like, those are kind of the guys that we really look for. We look for guys that are hungry, that want to grow, that are willing to learn and willing to change. And sometimes like you go partner with a guy that's 50 years old. He's doing, 3.5 million. He's making his money. He's living his lifestyle. He's running his life through his business. Like, that guy, I'm not going to be able to change. It's just really probably not going to happen. So it's just really, we try to figure out just good people. Like, can we trust them? Are they, because at the end of the day, I always say, like, when I talk to them, like, I feel like I'm Willy Wonka giving out a golden ticket. And I don't want to give it out to the kid that's going to go freaking eat all the chocolate in the thing. You know what I mean? And so like, I want to make sure I'm giving it out to a good person. I want to find a Charlie, right? Where it's like, man, that guy deserves to have this shit. And that's really how we look at it. It's like, do I want to go make this guy a millionaire? And if I do, I'll probably partner with him.
There's that clip that keeps going around the internet. You said you don't really want to work with somebody necessarily you wouldn't drink a beer with. I think it's the same thing. You don't want to sit down at a table with people that wouldn't starve with you.
Yeah.
Kind of that same thing. What would you say is, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I just have like, that's like my passion. Like, people ask me like, what your why is. And I talk about my guys, what their why is. Like, my why is literally to make these guys beyond rich. Like, and that's going to be my legacy. I made all my partners. I want them to tell their kids, like, hey, I met Uncle Vic one day and Uncle Vic made me rich. Like, that's my main goal with this whole thing.
You want to see people have a generational wealth that can change their family's life for the better.
Yeah.
And you're helping them by doing it in a business where it's a relationship style based business that a lot of people will probably say like, oh, you're just, people are getting taken advantage of. Your tickets are too expensive, this and that. It's not about that. It's truly not. It's about helping people build a business and build something they can be proud of and being able to go home every day and, maybe I'm going to pass this to my kids. Maybe they do want to do this later, or maybe they don't, but you know what? We're going to find a way that my kids are going to be able to do what they want to do in life.
Well, I also think it's unfair to think that, a lot of people, I'm going to pass my business off to my kid. Is like, it's unfair to think your kid wants to do what you do. I would rather give my kid I'd rather give my kid a big pile of cash and allow them to be who they want to be. Right. But then now they got a freaking head start to whatever they want to do in life. But I think it's almost like for guys, like, they're like, my kids are going to take this over. Like, that's not fair to them, bro. Like, you're putting a pressure on these kids where, like, at the end of the day, this was your dream. This is your goals. What doesn't mean it's their goals. But if you go and we go sell this thing for $20-30 million and you get this big check and it's life-changing money, now you can really set up your kids to be able to do what they wanted to do.
I think it's also, when it comes to that, it's the education that you can help these guys. And I learned, you had to learn a lot of this the hard way, how to manage money, how to figure out how to do different things in a business. And you can be like, look, guys, like, I have fucked up every bit of this.
Yeah.
Let's find a way that you can learn from the mistakes I made so you don't have to make them anymore, so that it sets you and your family up the way you never thought you could be set up. And that's
it's true, man. I've been through it all, man. I've spent tens of millions of dollars marketing companies. I've done every bad decision you could think of, and you learn from it, right? And I like to always say I paid for my education. Right. And now it's like, yeah, I can help you skip all those road bumps, or like, hey, what to do when this happens. Like, we have an answer for it. And if I don't, I have an entire team behind you. So like, a lot of these contractors are out there on their own and everybody in their business thinks they're successful. Behind closed doors are freaking out. They're not making money. Their employees think they're making all this money. They're stressed out. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay payroll. They can't pay all this stuff. And And it gives us like, now you have a whole team to talk to. You can talk to my finance team, talk to my sales team, my call center team, whatever it is you want to work with. I have someone that's done anything you're looking to do that will be able to give you an answer within seconds, and not just give you an answer, but go do it for you. If you say, hey, I need this done, or I need a new flyer for an employee, boom, we got our hiring team's already going out there getting you new employees for whatever position. So it's like, it's allowing them to have like kind of a cheat code to be able to get through everything, but they also get the upside, right? They don't have to figure it out and spend a decade trying to figure it out. Now we can do it in 2, 3 years, 4 years. And all of a sudden now we got there faster. We can exit this thing. And in reality, we are on a short runway. Okay. Like, I understand all the private equity numbers that everybody's seeing. Dude, the private equity numbers have gone down significantly. 3 years ago, you can take a $3 million business and sell it for a bunch of cash. Now private equity doesn't even want that business. They don't want it until it's a minimum 2 million EBITDA. And even at 2 million EBITDA is low for what they want. So like, if you don't build it to 2 million a year in earnings, like they're not even want to talk to you. They won't waste their time. Where before they would buy these $300,000 a year profit businesses and give you 4 or 5x on this thing. You get a bunch of money for a little business that's not really worth anything. Yep. So it's already shifted. And then now it's getting accelerated now with what's going on. And obviously the AI and the consolidation and all these things. Like, if you're at a $3 million and you don't get to 15 in the next couple of years, you're missing one of the biggest opportunities in your life. And we understand that runway. I work with private equity. I talk to private equity banks every day. I talk to, my lenders and all these things. And I see what's coming down the pipeline. It's like, okay, kick the tire down the road. 10 years from now, you're going to be obsolete. I guarantee it. You're going to get ran over by private equity and everybody else that's coming in.
And talking about all those different things, I believe that a lot of that kind of points towards, your book. So you just recently released Brick by Brick. Talk a little bit about, we obviously know who it's written for, but who really was it written for, and what problems does it help people solve and understand?
So I'll tell you how even the idea of the book came up, right? Like, the number one thing I get asked from contractors is, how do you market your business? How do you get more leads, right? And it's not as simple as 1, 2, or 3 things, and do this, and you're going to have leads coming out the back door. So I started talking to my brother. I said, hey, let's start clipping together all the different vendors, all the different things that we do, right? And we actually made like almost like a pamphlet of all the things that you need to integrate and the times to integrate them in your business. And as I started going through it, I'm like, dude, I got to tell the story behind all this stuff. Like, how did I come to this conclusion? Why do I use this? How do I, and if it's, you might be doing Facebook ads, it's not working, but this is how you make it work. Right. So I'm like, I started thinking of all these little things, and we're like, hey, let's just write a book. And when I wrote it for that guy. That was me, 7 years ago, starting a business, not knowing where to go, how to market, how to get people, what vendors to use, who I can trust, or what source should I start first? Should I get a billboard at $1 million? Heck no, right? But like, what should I do at that size? Do I need a website? How do I make my Google optimized? Like, what do I need to do? So I started writing the book. I wrote it for that guy. That was me, that started out, had an entrepreneurial seizure, didn't know where to look, didn't know where to begin. And I wrote it. And then I wrote it from the background of someone that spent, I haven't done the math on it, but it's tens of millions of dollars I spent marketing home service companies, right? And just outside the Rocky Group, I was also partnered in 6 or 7 other groups that have grown companies that have grown really fast and sold to private equity. And I was a minority partner. So I've been part of all these different things, and I know what works. And like I said, I've tested it in different markets. I worked with contractors everywhere. And we tried that, hey, this works, this doesn't work. This works this time of year. And we really try to map out, like, how do you grow this business? Whether it's, how do I get customers when I have no money, or when I have money, where should I start putting that money? Where should I invest it in to be able to scale, right? So the book covers everything from guerrilla marketing to community groups to Facebook to social media, to Google, direct mail, email marketing, text marketing, all these things, and all the things you can implement to scale your business. And I really laid it out in a simple way. It's almost like a roadmap. And I was talking to Dan Antonelli, and he's like, dude, I've never seen it put together this well in a book or anything ever, where it's so easy for a contractor to take this and implement these things and go win.
Trade crew, let's be real for a second. Most callbacks aren't because the system doesn't heat or cool. They're because something small got overlooked. And condensate issues, that's one of the biggest ones. That's why I like the Assurity system from Diversitech. It's a full approach. Pans, switches, pumps, all designed to work together and create redundancy, so you're not relying on just one line of defense. Because when water gets loose in a house, that gets expensive. Fast. Now here's the kicker. When you install it the right way, you can back it with the Assurity Promise. That's up to $2,500 in water damage protection. That's a big deal for your customers and for you and your business. Just go online to AssurityHVACR.com It's easy to register, tied to your install, and now you've got another way to stand behind your work. That's how you separate yourself. Ask your local distributor about a surety from Diversitech today. What's up, trade crew? You've heard the buzz, you've seen the press gang at every single AHR. Contractors across the country are ditching their torches for RLS press fittings, and they're not looking back. Why? Because RLS lets you finish faster, safer, and cleaner. From rooftops to mechanical rooms, crawl spaces, and attics, it's a press and go solution that's leak tested, UL recognized, and proudly made in America. Make the switch to RLS and take the heat out of your installs, literally. RLS, rapid locking system, press forward and press on. And looking at it from guerrilla marketing all the way up, it allows them to kind of step their way bigger. Because there's some people that look at the speed and scale that you want to help them grow, and it can be uncomfortable to even think about growing that fast. So being able to, this is almost like, hey, read this book, kick the tires a little bit, see what it does for you, and then you can really figure out what they're wanting to do with the business. They can figure out what they're maybe wanting to do with the business because they look at what it takes to get to these different places, but in a little bit different pace, maybe.
Yeah, and like I said, I wrote it for everybody. Whether you're a startup, if I was talking to my buddy, he's got a $50 million business, and he's like, "Dude, I read your book, and I've already implemented like 5 things today that I saw in there that we weren't doing that were very obvious that we should be doing, but we don't think about it, right?" So it doesn't matter if you're a startup, you're running a large organization, or you got even some of these guys. I see some of the book sales come through, or people that own franchises, right? These franchises are owning because most of the franchises have no idea what they're doing. Like I almost feel bad every time I run into a franchise company like that someone bought into a franchise and it's like they're coming to me for training. I'm like, why'd you go to this franchise? And so I saw one of the couple of the biggest franchises out there actually bought copies of the books. I could see the sales come through, but it doesn't matter what stage you're in. If you always want to learn something new, whether, and everybody in the playbook that worked 10 years ago, 15 years ago doesn't work today. And I think the beauty of it is I'm operating these businesses in all these different markets and I'm trying different things and some things work here, some things don't work here and all these things. So like I get to really lay it out and give you real ideas and real things that actually can impact your business and move the needle.
And looking through blueprints and mentorship work, what do you feel the industry really needs the most right now?
At the end of the day, they need to. I think the number one thing is obviously getting more people into the trades, right? Like, and I think I've really tried to be kind of like someone that makes people excited about the trades. And I know Ishmael and these other guys and Tommy and all these guys, and we talk about it like we want to be the reason that people want to go start a trades business or want to come become an HVAC tech or sales guy. So obviously it needs good people, but also I think a lot of people just need to understand what it really takes to run a business. And that's why we have people that come out to our masterminds and they think they're running a business and like, holy shit, like there's so many other things there's so many other possibilities, or they thought this is the cap of where they can be. And I think what I like to get people excited at what's really possible. I get them to think way bigger than they've ever thought before. And I think that's what I love the most is like they just need to see someone else do it. And I think I want to be that guy, and Ish and Tommy and these guys, like we want to be that guy that helps them believe in themselves and think bigger. Because what's happening is there's 23, 24-year-old kids. My one buddy, Sam, I think he's 29 and he runs a $90 million, almost $100 million HVAC company, right? He started it fucking 6 years ago. And so like stuff like that, where it's like, dude, there's some young kids that are coming in and the old school way of thinking is gone and you can keep trying to do the old stuff, but there's new guys and new minds and new people are coming in that are constantly involved in the industry. And we just have to make sure you pay attention to those things and adapt when they come so you don't get ran over.
Talking about the 23, 24-year-old young technician, especially ones that are listening to the show, because one of the things that I push heavily, and I have ever since I really got involved with AHR, is workforce development and finding avenues to talk about bringing people to our trade. And I think a lot of it is getting people to understand how many different avenues there are to actually being in the HVAC trade. It's not necessarily turning a wrench. It's all number of things from the contractor through distribution, through manufacturing, all those things. And every one of us need people coming into our industry. But if you look at that young technician or that young person, what's a piece of advice you can give them for building their career moving forward?
I mean, obviously, if you're a tech, right? Like, and one thing, and people just think I was just a sales guy, right? I started as a tech, and I wanted to be as technical as I possibly could, so that when I went into the house, I didn't have to think about technical. I could think about sales. Okay, so like, if you ever go out with me, I can pretty much fix anything. I haven't really found much I can't. So focus on the trade first. Make sure you have that down, but understand that sales is the biggest part of this thing. Like, if you want to make real money, you got to learn how to sell, right? And if you don't want to do that, and you think it's a bad thing, you're going to be stuck, and you'll make your $30, $40 an hour, and maybe it gets up to $60 an hour. But in reality, that number is always going down because inflation always goes up, right? So that's
Yep.
why I love being in sales. Is my money goes up as prices go up, right? And everything, the cost of everything goes up. So you got to stop thinking that sales is a dirty word. And the other thing I would do is go work at the big company. Go work at the big company that you talk shit on and you think that they're doing them things wrong and stealing people, and go see how much better their life is for those technicians at those companies, right? They have more opportunities, better benefits, better everything, better pay. And really start thinking like, I want to be like those companies rather than bashing them. Like, if you're a small company, you should be looking up to them. How do I get there? Right. And I tell people all the time, they think these big companies started out with everything, right? They started out like a little guy in a truck that had a goal and had an idea and had a dream and then implemented all these things. And so if you're a small company, you can bash those companies all you want, or you can figure out what they did, and success leaves clues. And go out and see these. You can come out to any of my facilities. Anybody's listening to this, you want to come out to any of my facilities. You want to do ride alongs with my sales guys. I got this one guy, I was just celebrating him today. He was an installer 60 days ago. He just sold $500,000 in the last 30 days. I just transferred him over to install. I trained him on how to run the process that we run. Literally $500,000 with no weather. And come ride with these guys and see what they're doing. And my guys aren't lying, stealing, and cheating. They're just following the process. And there's a problem, they're giving them options on repairs and giving them options on replacement. And we're not like, everyone thinks it's like sales is a hard thing. It's education. We
Yep.
go in, we educate the customer and let them make a decision. And we don't have to be pushy. That's why we have so many 5-star reviews. Is we do things the right way, and we don't make it to where we're backing them against the wall. We're being real technicians, giving them real options, and letting those customers decide what solution works for them.
A lot of the smaller companies that see the success, they're like, oh well, they're just lying, cheating, doing all these different things. And that's,
No.
are there companies that do that? Yeah.
Oh
We
yeah. Oh
we
yeah.
all know that. We've all seen it. But there are a lot of large companies that do things the right way. I've
What?
worked with you know companies that are 3 people, companies that are 600 people, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of a lot of what contractors will and won't do to do things the right way. And you know, people will bash on the big companies because a lot of times their prices are higher. It's like, well, you can hate them for that, but you also get to charge more money because their prices driven the market up a little bit too.
Well, at the end of the day, they're priced for where they need to be, right? Like, if people
Yep.
think that we charge high prices to not to just to make more money. We charge the high prices so we can actually support the growth, support our employees, make sure they have benefits and all these things that you're not giving your employees. We're giving them to them, and at scale, it costs a lot of money, right? So
Yeah.
like, everyone thinks here, one of those big companies I've seen, $500 million company my buddy runs. They run at a 16% profit margin. I think that's a fair profit margin at the end of the year to make 16% on 500 million. Yeah. Like, what do you want them to do? Go down to 2%? And they would have to cut their costs. Like, people understand that as you get to scale, the cost of doing business goes up because you're hiring more managers,
Yes,
you're
it
hiring
does.
more support, you're backing your stuff up, you're doing like all these things you got to put in place the little guy's not doing. So it's not just price gouging, and everyone thinks that, but if you really looked at the P&Ls and the numbers behind it, if you're making 20%, you're in the top 1% of the industry as far as, especially when you get to scale, right? So like, people think that's a lot. I mean, every dollar I bring in, I get to keep 20 cents of it. I think that's pretty fair with all the stress, liability, and all the stuff we have to put in place. Like, it's crazy that these guys think that people are price gouging when reality is a business is there to make money. You guys are running at 2 million, you're making 5% net, and you're talking shit about the guy that's making, like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, and it doesn't. And a lot of that comes down to, again, they built themselves a job.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it can come down to some of the things like that. So, kind of last question. You've kind of answered it a little bit, but I'll let you kind of really flesh it out the way you want to. What kind of legacy do you want your time with Profit Rocket and Rocket Group and with all of your partners? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind for the trades?
I think I want people to look back at me and think, obviously, I was generous and giving out. I try to give out everything. You ask me a question, whether it's on social media, texting me, I'll answer you 7 days a week pretty much. And I try to give back as much as I can. But I think I want to personally create more multimillionaires than anybody else that's ever done it in this trade. There's some guys that have done really successful for themselves, but they didn't really help everybody else along the way. So I want to be successful, right? But I think the success is how many people you make successful behind you, and that's really what my legacy is going to be. And when I'm done with this thing, and hopefully it ain't too much longer, to be honest. When I'm done with this thing, I want people to say, "Hey, dude, Vic changed my life. He changed the trajectory of where I was going or what I thought was possible," and that's kind of where I want to leave my legacy in this thing.
Well, Victor, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you spending just about an hour with me. Any last words you'd like to leave the trade crew with before we shut this thing down?
Yeah, if you guys want to come hang out with me in person, September 3rd and 4th, we have a 40,000 square foot training facility in Columbus that we're throwing an event at. There's only 200 seats to it. Come hang out with me for 2 days. We'll do a mastermind, hang out with my team. We'll open up our P&Ls. I'll show you our marketing, show you all the things that we're doing. So if you want to come out and see what we're doing, like I said, the ticket's only like $400. Come hang out with me and my team, and let's help you grow your business. So if you guys want to come join us, go to callprofitrocket.com. Also on our website, this is a little free gift for you guys. We have a pricing calculator on there. You go to our website, there's a free tool on there. It's going to show you how to price stuff properly in your business. If you guys are having a hard time with that, which I find is the number one thing is pricing across the board. So if you want to know how to price your business to be profitable, we got a little drop down on there. Check out our business blueprint, and obviously go buy the book. It's $25. I'm telling you, it's going to be the best investment you made if you go read that book.
Man, I appreciate it. I will put links, everybody. I'll put some links into the resource hub on HVACRD.com that'll help you get to some of this stuff as well. So Vic, again, appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much. Everybody listening, have a great weekend. Thank you for your time, and peace, Trade Crew.
See you guys.
And that's another one in the books, Trade Crew. If this episode brought you value, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Share this episode with your friends, your coworkers, your install team, your sales reps, and anyone else in the trades that needs to hear it. And if you've got a voice, a story, or a lesson that the trades need to hear, this show is built for you. Head over to hvacrd.com, use the show questionnaire link, or hit the links at any of our social bios, and make sure to give me your information so I can get you booked in for an episode of the show. Because if you're from the trades and you've got something worth saying, HVAC R&D is your platform. Until next time, keep evolving, keep serving, and keep the conversation going. Collaboration over competition always wins, so ramble on, Trade Crew.